Instead of saying, you're a mess, you've got all these problems, you're ADD, you're autistic, you're, you're just you're OCD, you're whatever. It's, we've been made to believe that that's an issue or that it's such a negative thing. And I've met so many people that have used it. If you find the key to how it can work for you, your life completely changes. Did you have that same experience, Eli?
Good day, everyone. Good day to another wonderful day, to another wonderful podcast. And yet again, I know this is going to be an extra stunning one because we had some technical issues straight from the off. I'm not even going to say we almost gave up, because not once did we almost give up. We came off, we went on, we went left, we went right, but we got back on, and now we're working. And now we're going to create this stunning podcast because we never gave up. And this beautiful lady is called Maureen Scanlon. Is that correctly said?
It is Scanlon, yes.
There you go. I'm getting there, listeners. Usually the surnames, Julius Eli does it again, but actually I got it correct. Now, as always, don't have a clue what she does for business. I don't even know what her issues are, but this is what happens. We just have a natural, beautiful conversation, and we go with the flow, and we see how we go. Maureen, thank you for coming on. Maureen, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love that you don't know anything. And I think it's like as if we met on the street and we were like, hey, we're at a stop sign and we're like, hey, how's your day going? How's your day going? Oh, I've been really busy. What do you do? And then there we go. And it's just like that, as if we just cross paths and we need to know more about one another. So I love your authenticity.
Oh, that's the way it should be, and that's how I like to gain opportunities and friendships, just by having that natural interaction. So what we're going to do is just ask you, Maureen, what do you do to help people in your successful business? And then we'll go from there.
I love it. I love it. So I am a master life coach. I specialize in self-esteem, self-confidence, dating, relationships. I am a best-selling author of 3 books. My books, my brand, everything is geared around dogs, because they really were the epiphany moment for me, getting out of all the crappy relationships my entire life, a history of being in domestic violence relationships. And the dogs really just one day showed me that I needed to unconditionally love myself the way that they love me. And so my books, my dog is more enlightened than I am. My dog is my relationship coach. And then I also have a children's book that teaches mindfulness and that emotions are good. And that's my dog, Bexley, is just like me. So I do speaking. I have a podcast, also sort of dog related. The title is I Never Knew, But My Dog Did. And we're going to have Eli on for sure. And it's really about just telling your stories and showing others there's hope. If they're going through the same thing, we can help you get through that. We can show you the resilience that you can have and, give tips. And some of the stories are pretty incredible. I had a guest who was shot 14 times. He was in the SWAT and he laid on the ground for hours until they could get him out of there. So these are intense ones, losing children. I had a young lady on who was gang raped at 13 years old. So there's a lot of these are impactful stories. So it's really enjoyable, like you, to have these conversations and meet people that are super inspiring. So in a nutshell, that's really who I am. I have been told I am a human amplifier. So I believe in making everybody understand how amazing that they are, because some of us don't know that and haven't been told.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a lot to digest right there and then. There's so much you can do to help so many people in so many different ways. So I'm taking that as a pointer that you've gone through so many different issues within your life, for you to be able to be in that position, to have that flexibility to help others. So let's delve more into that, because I'm just very nosy and I want to see how you tick, basically. So let's go right back. Now, unfortunately, you was talking about the domestic abuse that you had to go through, and that wasn't great. But before we talk about that, let's go further back to see where certain issues lied within your life. So, what was your schooling situation like when you was growing up? Did you have particular issues, as in communication? I remember you saying something about, before we came on, you said ADHD. Have you got that issue going on? So I take it that you found out later on you had ADHD, or was that an early diagnosis?
No, you are correct. I did not get diagnosed until I was an adult. In my second marriage, as it was failing, I finally had someone help me understand what's been going on with me, as well as not only my own struggles. I have a grandson with ADHD, and I have a daughter and a son with ADHD. So it's very, very familiar to me, and it's very, looks like there's a lot of hereditary stuff going on there where it's just continuing. And then also I've just discovered within the last 6 months that I'm also high functioning autistic. So, some of the weird things that I did as a kid now make sense. You know, I did a lot of stimming. I did a lot of like rocking. I would always rock, the sensory issues. Of course, I would get in trouble in school constantly for talking and fidgeting and just moving around all the time and not paying attention, not focusing. And so I it's interesting. I want to do like a study of people who haven't been diagnosed, and I want to see what their relationships have looked like before they knew it. Because I know as I look back, first of all, my family of origin, there was a lot of codependence there. So I watched a lot of codependence around me. And there was a lot of thinking you had to chase love. You had to earn love. I didn't know what unconditional love was. So I didn't have that self-confidence going out into the world. So of course, you add on sort of those ADHD or ADD qualities, and then maybe a little autism qualities. Now you think you're really just a big fat mess. You know, and when you finally understand, oh, okay, there's these traits, and oh, well, no wonder I did that. It's this relief. And I'm not big on labels. So I'm not big on giving labels, because as a life coach, I don't want people to make that their identity. But on the other side of it, it's a double-edged sword, because on the other side of it, there's a relief to know you're not alone. And this is not something that's, far out there to be neurodivergent. I mean, we're 50-50 in the world. You're either neurotypical or you're neurodivergent. And it's more common now because we understand it. And now that I've studied psychology, and I've studied, all of these mental disorders and struggles, and I always say I am the voice my younger self needed, because now to talk to people who are having that struggle when they come for coaching, I love being that human amplifier and saying, you're just fine. We just have to find what's your superpower and how to work with your superpower. Instead of saying, you're a mess, you've got all these problems, you're ADD, you're autistic, you're, you're just you're OCD, you're whatever. It's, we've been made to believe that that's an issue, or that it's such a negative thing. And I have met so many people that have used it. If you find the key to how it can work for you, your life completely changes. Did you have that same experience, Eli?
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, it took me only in the last 1.5 to 2 years did I learn to accept who I was, accept that, it's okay to be different, and accept that I'm glad that I'm different. And I've got a backstory, which I'll show on your show for sure. And you're totally right. And not until you accept we're supposed to be different. As far as I'm concerned, it is okay to be different. There's nothing wrong with being autistic or you're rocking or anything like that at all. We are supposed to be different. We're not all supposed to be the same. And that's the important thing. Unfortunately, we've been made in the world that you have to be a certain way. And because of that, we feel very negative if we don't fit in that box, which is what you was talking about. You don't like putting labels and boxes and whatever. And I get that. But let's go further back to your childhood. So we're talking about hindsight now. Obviously, you was diagnosed much later and you didn't see because you didn't know. But now you know. We're talking about hindsight. Go right back until the furthest you can, even if it was in the crib. When did people see differences in you, or when did you see differences in yourself with hindsight?
So you're gonna laugh, and it is pretty comical, but in a way it's not comical. So my mother, I love her. I have a great relationship with my parents, but growing up, my mother was very she wanted perfection, and she has said that to me before. She wanted her children to be perfect, and so she was very, very OCD. There was a lot of compulsive behavior in that, and carrying that over, projecting that on her children was really a struggle for us. So I was reading through my baby book of the things that my mother read, and you can almost tell. I always feel like when I read it, and when I tell people this, I always feel like I was such a pain in the butt from day one. I feel like she had notes in there. She has a big temper. She loves to show off. She is very always moving. It started, that was like from 2 weeks old. 2 weeks old. I'm like, how do you know a child has a temper at 2 years old? I am either hungry or dirty or tired, but it's just interesting. And maybe a lot of that growing up that way definitely had an impact on my codependent mindset of thinking I wasn't good enough and I had to be what people wanted me to be. And that's what codependence is putting someone else's feelings above your own. And so of course, that carries through. And then you add in sort of the neurodivergence, which I'm going to go a little on the spiritual side here. Everybody I know that has been diagnosed with some sort of neurodivergence is also a very highly sensitive person, meaning we're very tuned into other people. We have so much empathy. We feel deeply, more deeply than other people do. We observe more than other people do. When I say it's a superpower, it is a superpower if you view it like you're privileged to have this. You're so fortunate that you've got these gifts that somebody else doesn't have.
That's right. Yep. No, you're totally. And we are fortunate. It is a gift. And I really do mean that, not to make us feel better, but it is definitely a gift. So you was obviously growing up with this, and you was obviously seen as different. Your mother saw you as different with all these issues. When you look back, when were the big, massive issues that really made the changes within you, made who you are now? So obviously you was autistic, and those massive issues in school where you may have had problems interacting with the kids or with the teacher, or any massive issues, just break down for us where the contrast is when you was actually with other people as a kid.
I think I did a lot of the imposter syndrome, where I tried to really be something that other people wanted me. I wanted to fit in so bad. I was bullied. I was bullied really bad in junior high, and I'll never forget that feeling of fear, of just getting up and going to school and being scared of what someone's going to say about me or do to me. So really the bullying part of that had such an impact. But I remember, here's the cool part of this, Eli, is that I remember through all of whatever I was going through, I still always had this little sort of voice in the back of my head, like, you're different, you're special. You know what? Don't let it get to you. It's okay. I remember feeling that. I remember swinging on the swing set when I was 6 or 7 years old and having deep existential thoughts. How am I going to make a difference in the world? Who am I going to be when I grow up? Like, that's not normal at 6 or 7 to really have such a deep thought. And I can put myself right back there in that moment. My grandparents were caretakers of a church. And there was a little playground, and I would go swing on those swing sets. And there was a Chevron station, I remember. And I would just swing all day. I love to swing. And I remember those thoughts. I just remember looking at my brother and my sister and thinking, I'm not like you. Or in my family, I'd say, I don't think I belong in this family. I don't know why I'm in this family because I don't feel like I belong here. And fortunately for me, my superpowers, I had a lot of friends. I was able to make a lot of friends and juggle a lot of balls. And that's been the thing that has worked the best for me. So anyone who's ADD or ADHD, I want to say this. To be able to multitask the way that we can is so amazing, because those that are neurotypical, they're very stringent on one thing at a time. And I feel like we can accomplish so much because I can focus on 4 things at a time. I have 5 businesses and they're all doing fabulous because I can multitask. I can, and I need it. I need that much going on because I cannot get bored. So that's really when I realized it was I got bored with people in my life that didn't stimulate me intellectually, which husbands, ex-husbands. It really was like just not understanding why I couldn't be happy. That was a hard thing. And that's, I think, when the counselor finally said, I do believe you're ADD. And I was 35. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, you've got all of these things that fit right in to, this test that we do, or this whatever questionnaire. And he said, it's no wonder that you've had these problems. And I'm surprised you haven't known sooner. So you can see that a lot of us just adapt. We're really good at adapting. But getting the knowledge of something, knowledge is power, right? So we can do something if we know. That's the difference.
Totally. What I want to know is what made this little girl always have a positive way about her while she's swinging away thinking, I'm going to be someone. I'm. Surely that must have come from somewhere other than just your intuition. Did that come from grandparents? Another influence somewhere? Where did that come from exactly?
I don't know. That really is interesting. I think it was just completely intuition. I think it literally was just whatever my spirit came here for, whatever I contracted to do. Mm-hmm. It was not to be dulled. It was not to break me. And it never did, no matter what I had gone through. People to this day say, I cannot believe everything you went through. And look at you. I don't know. I don't know how I stayed in that positiveness. And I remember this moment when I found out. So my first husband, he was an alcoholic and he was abusive, and we were married for 10 years and we had 3 children. And I remember when I found out he was unfaithful, and I was having this conversation with a girlfriend of mine, and I was just heartbroken because I had gone through AA while I was pregnant with my kids. I mean, just been there by his side, just completely devoted to him and basically living his emotional wellness instead of my own. But I remember having this conversation, and anyone that knows me knows this story, where I was sitting with my friend and said, I don't know where it came from. I was just sobbing and I was just broken. And I remember saying, it's like he took my heart out of my chest and he stomped on it and then he handed it back to me. And I just don't know what to do. But if I have to go through this to help one person, I will. I don't know where that came from, Eli. That was just like, why would I say that in the most despair, darkest moment, that I would say I'll go through it to help one person? So knowing now I'm a human amplifier, it completely makes sense. I had to have the first half of my life be learning and the second half of my life be teaching. And that's the gratitude for all that we are, whether it's neurodivergent or neurotypical, just the gratitude for being who we are at this very moment. You're perfect. This very moment, you're exactly where you're supposed to be in this very moment is so relieving, isn't it?
Well, the thing is that, and I say this to everybody, and including my clients and friends, I say to everybody, for you to be successful in life and a great leader, be that in your personal life or in the business life, there's always the same trait. There's always some kind of hardship, because you are learning in that first half. You can't be given a silver spoon. Do nothing with that silver spoon and then expect to do great things while not going through any pain whatsoever. It doesn't work like that. Life does not work like that. You have to go. It's just like going to uni, right? Life is like uni. You go to uni and you have to spend all those nights, studying. You also got to do your job. You've got 3 jobs going on, plus you've got your partner, plus. That's painful to go through that for 3 years. When you come out of that, you come out more intelligent, and more importantly, you have a strength in your, street smart. Why are you street smart? You went through a lot of pain, right? There's no 2 ways around it. And it's the same thing with life. So great leaders come through great adversity. And especially when you're neurodivergent and you have serious problems, maybe studying, trying to navigate life, you go through great pain. And I'm not saying you have to be neurodivergent to go through great pain, but when you have certain issues, you have to go through great pain, and that's one of the reasons why neurodivergent people are great leaders. Because we feel isolated, we're not typical in what society wants us to be, or what the government wants us to be, or how they want us to teach us, and we've had to navigate and find our own way, hence so it's very, very important with what you've gone through. You've gone through a lot of pain, obviously, so this is why I wanted to speak to you about with your diverse way of teaching people, because you're not totally focused on one thing. You can do many things, but for that to have taken account, as I said earlier and before, you had to go through a lot of diverse pain, and this is what I want to talk about. This pain you went through with your husband, with the first husband. Now, he was a drinker. You knew and you were steadfast to who you were, and you were going to be successful. But even though he was bringing you down in more ways than one, how did you get through that, considering you had the kids? You knew he was very abusive, and he carried on promising, but never came through. And so you carried on and carried on. So what was the silver lining? What got you through that situation? And how hard was it really?
As I look back, and I think and a lot of people will say this is like a bad thing when you're in survivor mindset. But I think being in survivor mindset teaches us how to be solution focused. I really do. I think we learn how to handle crisis more. We learn how to be more in control of our emotions. As hard as that was, I learned that. I learned as much as it hurt for him to have cheated, I learned I was worth more than that, because I made the step to get out of that. Because everybody asks, why didn't you get out when he was abusing you? And I would say, well, because then I look bad. Then it's shameful for me. But if he cheated, then it looks bad on him. And
But
so,
hold on, let me hold you there. But how do you look bad if he was abusing you?
because you allow it. You allow it to happen. I did. I allowed it to happen. There's no other excuse. I had a part in it. And anyone who says they didn't have a part in their abuse, except for children and dogs. But I mean, as an adult, when you're in a relationship, you choose to stay in a relationship and you're being mistreated in any way, verbal, psychological, financial, or physical, you are making a choice. And so I own that. I like to own that, to say,
oh, so let me stop you again. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why that is. Usually, people do not say that I allowed it until it's over. But you knew at the time when the abuse was happening that you allowed it. Now that is unusual. And for me, that makes you an even stronger person, because you knew what was happening. You were conscious that you allowed it to happen, but you was also conscious you were staying there because of the kids and to seeing if it can change. And to have that mindset, that steadfast mindset, and still be strong enough to carry on that relationship while knowing it is your fault and you are allowing it, amazes me. That's quite unusual.
you know what, part of that is, I was raised that you just do it, you stick it out no matter what. You, as my mother would say, you made your bed, you lie in it. And I'll be honest, it isn't as if I thought I had a choice. That's what keeps us in survivor mode, is when you don't feel you have any other choice. I didn't realize then that I did have choices, but my focus was on making sure my kids were good, making sure that they were mentally and emotionally healthy, as well as being provided for. It was a big struggle after the divorce when I was taking care of the three of them and I wasn't getting any financial support. So you're financially abused in a way that you have to stay. You're psychologically abused, where they say, no one's going to want you. You have three kids. And then you're obviously physically abused as well. So all those factors keep you there. But I do believe we all know when something's not right in our lives. And something's not serving us, whether you stay in a job you hate, whether you stay in a family you hate, or you stay in a relationship, that those things that don't serve you, when you stay in them, it's happening. And it just depends on how strong and resilient we are when we get out of it. I find the younger generation is amazing because they don't do what my generation did. We really were sort of, just stick it out, stay in a job for 30 years that you hate, and then you can retire, or, stay with the husband till the kids are grown and then you can divorce. That was sort of the mentality of our generation. Now, I mean, I have a 35-year-old, 33-year-old, and a 26-year-old.
Hold on a minute. Roll back. You have a what-year-old?
So I have 3 grown children and a stepson, 35, 33, and 26, and 4 grandchildren.
Listeners, the reason why I said this, because when she says 35, I'm thinking, you look nowhere near that old. And that's why she shocked me with 35. So I was really shocked with that. But I diverse. So let's go back to the conversation. So as you were saying,
just that the younger generation, they're so much more in tune with what they want. And I'll give you an example right now. I have guardianship of my grandson. He's been with us for 3 years, and it is so cool. He's such a free spirit. And I remember the pressure we felt in high school. Like, you need to know what you want to do with your life, right now. And none of us knew. Nobody really knows. You kind of fall into stuff that you're passionate about, or you follow something that you think is going to be fun for you. But what's cool was they're not pressured the way that we are. At least I'm not pressuring my grandson. And so I say to him, well, what do you want to do? He wants to open a nursery. We live in Austin, Texas, and he wants to open a plant nursery here in Texas. And he's going to go to Austin Community College and get some business classes in there. And it's just like, wow. And I'm not like, you need to go to UT and you need to, blah, blah, you need to have a scholarship and you need to have degrees. No, I want him to do whatever makes him happy. Half the time he says he's going to backpack across Europe, and half the time I don't think he's going to get too far away from me. But it's pretty fun to watch this generation just be like, yeah, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. He's also a drummer. So he said to me the other night, I'm going to make a living at drumming, Grandma. I was like, cool. Let's see it. Let's do it. And I don't know if you were that in our generation, I was discouraged to do the thing that I really wanted to do, which was be an actress. That was like my dream, was to be an actress. And I remember, telling my parents, and in essence, they said it a little harsher, but in essence, they said, you just don't have what it takes. So you might want to think of a plan B.
Oh, really?
And I had a full scholarship. Yeah. And I had a scholarship and everything that I could have gone to college, but no, instead so maybe that's why I fell into the marriage, or you know what I mean. And I think being an empath, I think being neurodivergent, I'm a fixer, but I was fixing the wrong people in the wrong way. I don't need to fix anybody. Now, as a life coach, I'm helping people fix themselves. That is the difference, right?
I hear you. But also, when you're talking about the younger, you're saying the young probably won't put up with what we had to put up with, or what you had to put up with. It's not necessarily a good or bad thing, because the situation is, as much as, yes, you shouldn't have put up with that, you shouldn't have gone through that. I tend to find that the young aren't as resilient. They don't stick in there. They're not consistent. They don't have the, especially with the way social media is and the use of this technology, they don't have the concentration time to actually concentrate on one thing at a time, skip from one thing to another. So, as we already know, when you have a relationship, you try to make it work. You're different entities, both of you. You try to compromise to go forward. I tend to find that, this day and age, that, if it doesn't work instantly, then move on. For me, life doesn't work like that. You have to work at it, just like you work at a business, right? You work at a relationship, and it's the same thing. Having grandkids, I mean, I don't have a clue what it's like having grandkids, so you'll have to tell me, Maureen, but and I lie, but but you know what I mean. It's 6 of one and half a dozen the other. Yes, you shouldn't have gone through that situation, that hardship that you went through, but at the same time, you were resilient. You have resilience, and that's very hard to come by, especially in this, in this new generation. I'm not saying they don't have it. I'm just saying it's less so this day and age, because they want everything. It's a throwaway age too. Before, when we was growing up, you had to fix it. You had to fix whatever was broken in front of you, be that a relationship or be something physical. But now, this day and age, it's a throwaway culture. It's throwaway in the things that you have and own. It's a throwaway culture in the relationships. But anyway, we are diverting in different conversations. What's going on, Maureen? What are you doing to my podcast here? This is not good at all with our relationship. It's not good whatsoever. But it is what it is. But it's interesting.
I think,
and that's what matters.
I know, and I think you're absolutely right. And if we go to thinking about in today's world, they get instant gratification. And I think we didn't expect that in our lives. I think we really believed in how you had to earn something. But it's kind of a double-edged sword too, because on one hand it's good and one hand it's not, because I stuck in something I shouldn't have. I didn't believe I was worthy of more than that. And you look at them and they want instant gratification, but they're also going to only stay in something that serves them best or that makes them feel happy. And it's kind of, what is it? Six of one and a dozen of the other, or whatever they say. That it's, there's no cure. I don't think there's a cure or a perfect way of living or growing up or raising children. There's overstimulation. I think for anyone who's neurodiverse, and we'll get back to the neurodiversity, we'll get back to the path. I think there's so much overstimulation, and I think that's the biggest struggle for the youth today, is those who, and we also sort of throw it out there as a buzzword, like, I just can't focus. Oh God, that's my ADD. Not necessarily truly being diagnosed with it. And sometimes you don't even have to be diagnosed, but you do have to look at the characteristics and the traits that you have to say, that's like with the autism. I didn't get officially diagnosed, but I did the official, whenever they do the screening. Right. And it's like 9 out of 10, you're highly likely. So you don't necessarily have to go to a physician to get diagnosed, but we throw stuff around, like we've been throwing, the word narcissist around lately, the last few years. There really is psychology too. You have to follow certain traits. You have to really have those things. Just like you can't go to the doctor and say, I had a heart attack, but I don't have any chest pain. You've got to have certain things to relate to that actual diagnosis or that disorder. So that overstimulation, the use of some of the terms with neurodivergence. Oh, I need everything perfect. I'm so OCD. No, that's not it. And I'm certified in coaching neurodivergent people. So even more so, because I was fascinated just with my own. And then once I was doing the studies to be certified to help others, I thought, gosh, I would be so passionate about helping people that are not neurodiverse, because I get it. That's what makes you good, is when you've been through something. I think traditional therapy it's okay I always say traditional therapy is to discover and life coaching is to recover. So it's good to figure out what's going on. But I think as far as staying in that's where we go wrong. We've got to move forward with, how do I find coping skills? What tools can I use that work for me? Disorganization. I'm very impatient. That's a very big trait of mine. So I'll teach my clients, I'll say, you got to do a priority system. When they say, oh, I'm overloaded, I'm overwhelmed, Maureen, if I can't do all of it, I just don't do any of it. And I'm like, okay, we got to take a bite. We got to take a bite of the hippo here. Prioritize your ABC system. A has to be done. I have time constraints. B needs to be done in the next week or two. And C, I'd like to do it, but I don't have to do it right now. And boy, that just clears everything up. So those are the kind of tips and things that I use, not only for them, but for myself as well. Do you have anything that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'd use it for my clients to focus, because as I briefly said before we came on here, I use technology to help people to focus, to automate everything. But I have a habit of trying to try every single thing out that comes out there, which is a typical man, but even worse. But I've had to put certain systems in there, and I call it the 3-step system. If I use anything, say for instance, I need something for taking my notes, I'll only use 3 things that allow me to take my notes. And then I go, right, I like those 3 things, but this one I'm going to focus on and only use those, and use that one. And the other 2 are backups. And I keep that as a rule nowadays, because otherwise I just go round the mulberry bush, trying everything and anything. So I make it a rule. So I keep focus. I automate everything to keep my life easier, and plus to keep my hands out of the cookie jar, right? And I do the same thing for the clients. Because I'm neurodiverse, I know exactly where they're coming from, what they're going to say, what their needs are, and then I just implement it, because it's as if I'm interacting with myself. So I just keep things simple. I've learned to keep things simple now. Otherwise, I'm in 1,001 different things. Oh my God.
I love that. I love that so much because some of us are not technology, savvy or even friendly. I have two things that I use to make sure I don't forget things. It's this and it's this. That's
the pen and the paper, really?
The pen and the sticky notes. I swear, because someone said to me, I think it was one of my podcast guests, she said something to me that I will use for the rest of my life. She said, Maureen, if you think it, ink it. Oh my gosh. Write it down as soon as you think about it. In our house, like you should see, like there's sticky notes galore on the counter. It's as soon as I think about it, because I made the mistake of telling my husband, hey, remind me to blah, blah, blah. Then I started texting myself, which is really helpful too. I'll text myself stuff I need to remember. But I'm such a visual person that I have to see it. It has to be right in front of me. My grandson and I, the other day, his room. Okay, he's a teenager, right? He's going to be 17 in 6 days. He has everything out, like displayed, like shoes, and then everything's like out. And I'm one of these where let's put it away, but somewhere where it's organized, where you can see it. I said, can you put some of that like in the closet? And he goes, if I don't see it, Grandma, I won't know it's there.
I get that.
And I'm like, I wonder how many. Yeah, you do get that, because that's I get it to a certain extent. Like for in the refrigerator, my husband will say, hey, this has been in there for a while, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about it, because I didn't see it. But for him, like it has to be literally out in his visual space every day to remind him this pair of shoes that he has. If it's in the closet, he forgets he has that pair of shoes. Is that common for you? Is that something, how about listeners? Anybody else struggle with that? Because I'm more of the maybe organized chaos. Like I need everything organized. Otherwise I'm like overwhelmed.
I like me personally, I gotta have things organized, but I also like things where I like to see them. Otherwise, they disappear. Does that make sense? So I have a lot of clients, the older clients especially, they have difficulty with computers, and I totally understand that because they can't see what they're dealing with. All right? Yeah. Right. You have folders on the computer, that's fine. But you have cabinets in real world. It's very easy to open up a cabinet and it's all tagged up. You see those tags? Anybody can deal with that, be you techie or non-techie. That's easy. But when you have a computer and everything's hidden behind these virtual, invisible things, I get how infuriating that is. And that's what it's like for most people, especially for older people. So when I have my clients, I physically get a help and they go, I just don't know what I'm doing, so I have to put things in a way that I can see things, but I also use their sticky notes, right? Because I use them too, because I'm using it right now, because we're having this conversation, right? And if I don't put it down, listeners, I'm like a fish. I'm like, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you know what gets even worse? And I'm gonna like literally go off the path for just 1 second, and you're not gonna understand this, but I'm gonna speak to part of your audience right now. What's even worse is when you're neurodivergent and then you are over 50 and you've got menopause going on, because you already have a foggy brain from menopause. And sometimes I'm like, is it my menopause or is it my neurodivergence? It's like, I'm just a mess and I can't remember anything. Words. You'll get a kick out of this. Words. I forget words. I'm very big. My whole life, I love vocabulary. I won first place in the 6th grade spelling contest. So I'm just saying, I love words. But I cannot come up with certain words now. I mean, I'm an author. I mean, I wrote 3 books, for crying out loud. Why? I can't come up with simple words. So now I hope you guys can relate to this, and I hope it's not just me, but I describe what I'm trying to say. So we were in a vehicle or we were in my husband's car the other day, and I said, we want to get my grandson a car because his birthday is coming up. And I said, but does it have one of those sky window? And he goes, what? And I go, the sky window. He goes, you mean a sunroof? And I'm like, well, yeah. Just coming up with, just trying to describe something. And I find myself getting so literal of what I'm trying to describe.
I'm there with you, Maureen. I get days like that. I get days like that. The thing is people think I'm very well spoken and I'm very good with words. I'm not. I know how to blag it enough until I find the right word. Does that make sense?
Yes. Buy some time.
Done, yes. Yeah.
Totally. You buy some time until you hope it pops into your head.
Exactly. And luckily enough, it usually does. I'm so good with words describing that nobody knows. And then I bring the right word out and nobody has a clue because I'm just so used. But I'll tell you what it is. The reason why I'm so good at it, that has been me since a child. That has always been me, yes. So that's something you're going to have to bring up on your podcast. And as it's not a podcast about Eli today, your listeners, you'll have to wait until you listen to her podcast to hear me talk about my story. So, and so hence the reason why I'm so good at actually describing things is because all my life I've had to do it. So this is why I create my podcast in such a way where I just have a conversation, because trying to do it from a typical way, having lists of questions and check out the person's background and all that, forget that. I literally, I'm rushing. Now, listeners, this is what really happens. I look at the time, I've got, oh my God, I've got 1 minute to get onto the podcast. I run without any notes, without knowing them or anything. I switch on the computer just about on time. And then I go, how are you? And I have a conversation. Can you believe it? I have a conversation, don't even have a clue. And I've just popped on. How crazy is that? But it always ends up
fantastic. That's it right there. See, it's making that superpower work for you. Nobody has a problem with that. In fact, everybody loves that because it is so spontaneous. And for me, I need to know a little bit more. I don't want to know everything. I'm not scripting. I'm not asking questions. Just tell me about you. Just tell me what you do so I know that your topic is something we haven't covered yet. But I'm like you. We're just going to get on and have this authentic conversation. But I can't do that last minute thing. So I'm a prepper. I'm curious how many other neurodivergents are like this. So if I wake up in the morning, and of course, before I go to bed, I'm like, okay, this might be more of an OCD than an ADD. But I'm like, okay, how many appointments do I have? Okay, I have 3 appointments and they're 2 hours apart. And then somehow the next day something comes in and they're like, oh, hey, I need to jump in and have a call with you. I am like thrown for a loop. I'm like, wait, but no, I had an hour between. Now I only have like 20 minutes between. And I don't know if I can do that. Like my husband just giggles because first of all, I'm married to someone who is absolutely my best human I've ever known, and completely the yin to my yang. And he is very logical. He is he's an engineer. He's very just go with the flow. Like we are the perfect contrast to one another. It is great how I make him more emotional. I help him with emotional intelligence. I help him with different perspectives of people because he can be kind of dry, and he helps keep me grounded when I'm all over the place and I'm flighty. And he knows, he just appreciates it. He's very cute because he will send me TikTok videos about couples in ADHD where the guy's not ADHD, the wife is, and how they interact, and it's fun. He's very supportive, and I think you have to have people around you that understand you and are very supportive of there's difficulties that we can sometimes have, these superpowers that some people just can't understand sometimes.
Yeah, no, totally. My partner, I think I had a conversation with my partner a few hours ago, and what was it? We went to a prom of my daughter's, and she had her makeup done, and the makeup wasn't that great, to be honest. And she said, "What do you think of my makeup?" And I said something like, "Don't really like it." I said something like that. It was something like that. And I was being honest, because she's so beautiful as she is. When that makeup went on, I thought it took away from her, right? So I looked at her and I thought, "But baby, you've got beautiful eyes and blah, blah, blah." When you just do your makeup, it's absolutely, you just put enough just to insinuate what you have already. And then you had all that. And then my daughter said to me, "Okay, you know what? When a woman says to you, blah, 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 say she's beautiful." And I said to her, "But why?" But she's not. She's beautiful before that. So that's
delivery. Yes, it's completely about the unfilteredness, and we have to think of like, what are the consequences of what I'm about to say. Even though I'm not affected as emotionally as they are, I have to think about, how would I take that, or how are they going to take that? We have to like sort of try to plan ahead of what we're saying. It's not what we're saying, it's the delivery,
I know it does. And the thing is, and I think someone said to me, well, if someone said the same thing to you, how would you feel? I said, I'd be cool with that, because it's the truth, and then I can do something about it, right? If there's something wrong, be straight with me so I can do something about it. But that's my logic. I just say that's
mansplaining right there. That's not even neurodivergence. That's mansplaining, because my husband is the same way. And I'll say to him, you can soften it a little bit. You can soften it so you're not really being so aggressive to people or hurting people's feelings. What? It's the truth. And I said, honey, not everybody takes it as direct as you deliver it. Sometimes people just need it to be kinder, Is it necessary? Is it kind?
I think I'm going to like your husband. I'm going to meet him one day, because I think he's a true man. I think I like him.
He is. You would love him. He's got a good sense of humor, very dry. He's a movie. Like, he always has this ability to bring up a movie, what year it was made. Oh, did you see this? I'm like, I can't even tell you what I ate for breakfast. So no, I don't remember that movie. But he's really one of those just... it fascinates me because he can bring out facts. He's very interesting, and we talk about what we call MIMS, meaningful information I must share. It's like these little trivial things that you wouldn't think about, and it's kind of fun because we kind of keep each other on our toes. And his is mostly science and math, which not my thing. Mine's music, entertainment, and pop culture. So it's kind of fun.
So I take it when you're listening to it, sometimes you're ready to sleep.
I have to tell myself in my brain, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that. And I've told him this when he's telling me a story about work, and he's like across the hall in his office. When he's telling me a story about his work, I literally in my brain am going, just focus on what he's saying. Just focus. What is he saying? What did he say? Something about a cooler, an AC cooler. It's what? What does he talk? I have to like make sure that I'm telling myself to, and that's a really good tool too for ADHD. Not only that, but I use it also in my relationship coaching with couples, is having to focus on what they say so you can mirror back. Because if you're not paying attention, you can't mirror back. You're just oh yeah, really? Okay. Yeah. I know what you're saying. If you're not paying attention, but if you're paying attention, then you go, wait, so what you're telling me is this guy said this, and that's not the way it should have been. Now I'm listening, but it is an effort. It is an effort because it's a snooze fest. I love him. I love him dearly. It's just his work to me is completely different spectrums. Of how my brain operates. And
No,
Yeah,
I
I'm a
can
creative.
imagine because it's not creative. Engineering is not creative whatsoever. I was a sound studio engineer, so I did it because I can imagine me speaking to my partner and saying, right, when I put it up by 5 decibels and I pulled it back, but it's not going to work, is it? That conversation is not going to happen. So I totally get it. There's no two ways about it. So let's get back onto the path of your neurodivergence and your ADHD or your ADD. So we obviously have seen how it's just enriched your life, even though it was very, very difficult, and it still is, because it's always a journey. It never gets, should I say, gets easier. No, you just learn how to cope. You learn how to adapt. You learn how to use the right tools at the right time, and with hindsight. So you had the first relationship with your husband. You had the divorce, and then you thought, at what stage you could use your life skills with what you've gone through to help other people. When did that light bulb go pink?
It's interesting, and I think all of us know what we're meant to do or what we're passionate about, like pretty early on. We just don't always follow it. And so, I mean, I always wanted to be in counseling or psychology or, something that would help someone. And I remember my kids bringing their friends home and they'd say, come and talk to my mom about that. My mom is really good. She'll give you some really good advice. And they would call me the counselor. And, so it had always been there, but I never realized that I could really use it based on what I had been through. Because until I'd been through stuff, how am I going to tell somebody else how to do that? And that's why I feel coaching is so much more effective. If you are in a niche that you've experienced, because I don't feel we have the right to speak on something that's not in our wheelhouse. I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think it's being false, and a book can only help you so much. I think, you have to really, a doctor can go to medical school, but until he actually works on a patient, it's not the same. So, so that was really what it was. It was going through my entire life. And I went through even after the divorce. And then I married my second husband, which he wasn't a bad person. In fact, we're still we've talked and we're amicable, but he was just a friend.
I like that one. Somewhat we talk. Yeah.
He should have just been he should have just been a friend. But the problem was the bar was pretty low. So this, whoever wasn't abusing me, well, then they had to be better than him. So I kind of, again, jumped into that, then got into a couple more that, again, people with very narcissistic traits and psychologically abusive. It just kept going until I finally had that moment where it was like, yo, Maureen, stop doing this. You have been doing this since you were, 18 years old. The only common denominator in all this nonsense is you. So let's figure this out. Let's find out why this isn't working. And I sat in my room, and back to the dog thing, I sat in my room and just tried journaling and figuring out what is going on here. Why do I feel like no one can accept me, or no one is kind back or gives back? And that's when the dogs were like just staring at me, and they were just there. And it was just that moment of like, almost like they were like communicating, obviously without verbal, but saying, look, love yourself. You gotta, you've got to figure out how to love yourself in order to attract people that are going to love you. And that was a really big moment for me. From there, everything changed. Everything changed for me when I made up my mind. And this is one of the biggest things I do for people who are recovering from divorce, for people who are dating, or people who are in relationships and having struggle. Until you love who you are, you cannot accept someone to love you like that. Like, don't look for someone to fill the gap of the self-love that you're not giving yourself. Right? And you can't surround yourself with negative, toxic people and try to live a positive life and try to uplift yourself. It's impossible. It's counterintuitive. So that was really for me when I determined that I would only do things that served me going forward. I would never settle again. What I do with my coaching is we create an avatar. And so I created this avatar of what I needed on a soul level. I need these things on a soul level. And that way, when I went back out into the dating world, if they didn't meet that, it was like, okay, cool. You're not the one. We're just not a good fit. Before I'd be like, well, I got to make this guy fit. I gotta make this work. I gotta make him love me. And no, nonsense.
Okay, let me just stop you there, just quickly. Let me just stop you there quickly. Let's go just back a bit. What was the straw that broke the camel's back for you to make that decision?
The final relationship that I had kicked the last one out, and again, looking back at who he was just same guy, different face. I just kept choosing the same man, different face, because I hadn't changed. So how could they change? And just finally being on my own again and saying, you don't need to do this. You don't have to be in a couplehood. In my family, nobody had been divorced. Nobody was single. So my belief system was, you're not really worth something if you're not in a couple. And that's not true. So that was the catalyst for the change. And then starting to do things on my own and by myself. That's what really helped me build that self-esteem and that confidence, saying, I'm not just a wife. I'm not just a mom like I've been for the last however many years. I'm actually fun to be around. I'm a good person. I'm kind. I'm giving. I'm caring. I'm compassionate. So being able to look at myself with clear eyes instead of, being clouded by what I've heard my whole life, the negativity or the abuse. I now was able to sort of clear through all that and say, you know what? You're a good person. And you know what? I remember going out in the dating world for the first time and sitting across from someone and thinking, I went from, oh, I need this person to love me, to they have no idea how lucky they are to be sitting across from me. And that might sound, a bit braggy but I had to get there. I had to get there.
That's a beautiful switch. That's a beautiful switch. And that's the right switch to have, because you accepted yourself to show yourself how beautiful you were as a person, how right you were as a person. And so other people should be able to think the same thing about you. Then you gave yourself validation, which then put you in a position where, as you said, you didn't rely on a man to be a certain way. They just had to fit in with you and accept who you were. And once you went through the stage of acceptance from the point of view of how you kept on reoccurring these negative relationships and it was your fault, that's the first acceptance. And once you've accepted that, then you're in a position to say, well, as I have put myself in the position, I can do A, B, and C. But until that acceptance happens, it will never happen, because it's always somebody else's fault, right? If it's that person's fault, then how can you make the change? Because you've got to rely on the other person to make the change before your life changes. And that's the wrong mindset to have. And when you flipped that mindset and accepted who you are, and when you didn't like who you are, when you was accepting negativity, you thought, right, I'm going to change that, which you did. And you, rightly so, sat in the bar and thought, I'm good enough. If you don't like the way I am, that's up to you. Which is the right mindset to have, because that's how you get not just romantic relationships, but that's family relationships, because then you don't put up with the crap in the family. That's also friendships. So you don't put up with the people stabbing you in the back, and it ricochets even in your business, because then you make the right decisions in your business because you're not fearing you're losing out on the people that you work with. Oh, I'm not going to get that person again. They're just too good for my business. No. you understand the flow of life. And the flow of life is very important. People are only supposed to be in there for a second, a minute, a month, a year. It all depends. And that's okay. And you've understood that. So, God, I went around the mulberry bush. What I meant to say is that, yes, you are correct. As she's coughing herself to death.
I know, I'm so sorry. Allergies bad here in Texas. No, it's so true, because that's one of the things, and you know that, from coaching, is we look so hard for outside validation. I mean, we go through our lives really working to please our bosses or our friends or, the romantic partners or teachers, or we've gone through life consistently waiting for that validation, looking to be told they're proud of us. And then we expect to go out as adults and just automatically get this whole thing that I don't need anybody's validation. No, it's a very hard path. It isn't a straight leap. It's like we have to figure out at some point when, and I think for me, hardships are what happened. That's what got me there, because when you go through crisis and you feel alone, and you dig yourself out of the mud and the weeds, when you're on the other side, you go, I did that. I rely on me. I know I'm strong. And when my clients are struggling, I'll say to them, can you make a list of all the things you did well? Can you make a list of the things in the past? Or can you just remind yourself, hey, remember when I went through that? And I got out of that, and look at what happened. We forget to remind ourselves how strong we are. We forget to remind ourselves of all the great things we've done. We're so busy looking forward to, I have to do this thing. I have to do this thing. And I'm not good enough at this. And we forget to look back and say, look at the human experience is pain is inevitable. Pain is actually good because we need the contrast. Can't know happy if you don't know sad, right? Yes. Can't know joy if you don't know sadness. Can't know, can't know rich if you don't know poor. I just feel like that's the whole idea, is to come here and have this whole human experience. I don't want a piece of it. It's like having a rainbow and only seeing yellow. Like, I want all of it. So that's part of the, I think, human experience is get it all, have it all.
Do you hear that, listeners? She's greedy. That's what that basically means. She wants everything. She's being greedy.
I am. Darn right.
No, totally right. No, you've got to experience the yin and yang. It cannot be done unless, you can, but you'll never really know how to coach or advise people in the correct way, because you're only theoretically coaching or advising. It's a bit, as Maureen said earlier on about a doctor, it's very well being in the uni for 5 years, but it's a completely different thing when you actually work on a person's body, open them up and find out how all these intricate things work together. It's a completely different ballgame. Yeah. Theory works and gets you only so far, but practicalities is where the game is at, for sure. Maureen, so you decided that you had to work with people to help them get through their adversities and their difficulties after going through so much within your life. And to be honest, we haven't even touched slightly on what's happening in your life. And you've gone through some serious hardship that we haven't gotten close to. But the point is this: you've taken all of that and all those difficulties with ADHD, autism, and all those other things entailed, and then you decided one day, right, I'm going to help many other people do this. And in what way did you want to help them? What way did you want to start? How did you go about it?
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about the frog in my throat here. So it was interesting. A friend of mine had called me and said, hey, you would make a wonderful life coach. And I said, what is that? So it was kind of new. And she said, oh, just look it up. You would be fantastic. And I looked it up and I thought, oh my gosh, and as a neurodivergent, I don't like boxes. So don't keep me in a box. So being able to do this without having to go through 4 years of college and all the money and the expense and the certifications and the clinical hours, like that's just not me. I want to just do this. I want to be able to sit with someone and let's think outside the box. Let's connect and let's let you know how great you are. So I was in a corporate job. I was in the medical field for 27 years. More than that, at that company for 27 years. And I started the life coaching business after my certification. And I remember plain as day. So that job was very soul sucking to me. It was not who I am. I did not like it. It met a need when I was a single parent and I needed to provide, but that time had passed. But my fear of letting go of that belief system that my parents had, the stability, the 401k, the blah, 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 blah. That was a hard thing to let go. And so I'm doing both businesses and I'm starting with life coaching. Of course, every life coach starts off free. Everybody starts off like, let me coach you. Let me coach your friend. Let me coach your mom. We do that because we want that experience. And so I remember, I don't know how far into it was, maybe a year. And someone connected with me on LinkedIn, a lady, she was a business coach. She said, let's have a conversation. So we got on the phone and she said like the most impactful things, just a random stranger, which I absolutely love. And I believe that's important. We always be on the alert for these random meetings that we're supposed to have because they're not random. There's no coincidences. There is a reason. She said to me, Maureen, why are you still at your corporate job? Because you cannot swim and you cannot run with 1 foot in the ocean and 1 foot on the beach. I was like, oh my gosh. Big light bulb, thinking to myself, if I am only believing in my business 50%, how would I expect a client who comes to me to believe that I'm going to give them 100%, right? Mm-hmm. So I get off the phone with her and my boss calls me from corporate and she said, hey, we're supposed to be having your review, a phone call. And I said, wait, what? I didn't get anything. She looks it up. She said, oh, I emailed it to the wrong Maureen. Coincidence? I don't think so. And I said, oh, okay. She goes, well, can you talk now? And I said, yeah, sure. That'd be great. It was the best review I had ever had. I finally received some recognition. I finally felt understood. I finally felt seen for the initiative I've been showing for 20 plus years. And it was so anticlimactic that at the end of it, I said, I really appreciate this. And thank you so much for that great review. It's the best one I've ever had. But I just want to let you know I'm going to be retiring in 2 months. And they were like, what? Yeah, that was it. I knew that's where I was going. I knew that I was being told, Maureen, that was not coincidence. That was organized for you to tell you, this is where you belong. This is where you belong. We got to listen to those voices. We really do. We have to not think they're just crazy, delusional voices. They're like real voices saying, I'm guiding you.
Yeah, doing well. Do you know what? I'm going to have to put a line in the sand. There's so much more I want to speak to you about, but if I don't, my child is going to be fuming even more. I'm sure you've heard her in the background crying, daddy, daddy, daddy. So this has been a wonderful, wonderful podcast for sure. Look, listen, how do people, before we do go down that road, is there anything you want to give the listeners, any information whatsoever, a bit of line of gold to help them through their path? Anything we've missed? And if you could leave one thing and say one thing to them, what would it be?
Oh, there's so many nuggets that I have, and I think the biggest thing that we go through life worried that we're not doing enough, we're not doing the right thing, we don't know how to make the right decisions. Should I do this? Should I pick this person? Should I take this job? And my favorite mantra is, nothing meant for me will ever miss me. So know that when something's meant for you, it'll be right there. You'll be ready for it, and it'll be brought to you on a platter, and you'll know exactly what decision to make, just like I did that day when I'm like, this is it, time to retire. So be brave, be bold, be ready to take a leap, take a jump, and don't overthink. Don't overthink everything. That's really the key. Don't overthink her like Eli and his technology, because it's just too much.
And I totally agree with you. And with that said, Maureen, how do people contact you? Even though after saying that, I should deny you, but I'm going to say it anyway. How do they contact you?
Oh my God, I adore you. I am a one-stop shop, because with ADHD, nobody needs to be going to 10 different websites. I'm just saying. I am at lifecoachmaureen.com. So all one word, Maureen. My books are there. My coaching's there. My speaking is there. All my stuff is there. So anything you guys want, I do these free discovery calls. So if you're looking for coaching or relationship coaching or dating coaching, which is my absolute favorite, we do the avatar. We work on your online profile, and it's just dating is so much fun if you view it as fun. So yeah, one-stop shop, Life Coach Maureen. I'll do a discovery call with you, see if we are a good fit for one another. And yeah, that's it. Just reach out and say hello. I do, if you don't mind me mentioning, I do have a doggy boutique as well, where I make homemade treats. So that's mydogiseverything.net. So we have everything online. It's kind of fun. A product business, which is unusual. I do all services.
And Maureen, there was so much I wanted to ask actually. That's but we just run out of time, because I wanted to talk about the dog side of things, because that would have been funky to speak about, but it is what it is. Listeners, as always, look down below. You'll find a link to be able to go to our website. If you want to copy and paste or click away, you can. But as you can see very easily how Maureen has got to the stage how she could lightly help you if you're resonating with her, because she has gone through the hardships of life to be able to coach you and to help you in a way that's intuitive and that's correct, because she hasn't read it out of a cookbook, so to speak. So right. She's the lady to go to, and trust me, she's got a beautiful smile. So if you can't see that smile now, as my grandfather would say, your smile, it's sunshine, and that's the way it should be. So please, if you're resonating with this lady, it's not going to cost you anything. Just see with a discovery call and just take it from there. And I will surely be going on her podcast, probably making an ass of myself. But hey, if you don't try, you never know. So only time will tell. I love it. So
can't wait.
Maureen, what is your podcast name again?
My podcast is I Never Knew, or Ink, INK, but my dog did podcast. And it's on Apple and all those places, Spotify and all those. And we have 5 stars, all 5 stars on Apple. So kind of fun. We're in the top 5% globally per listen notes. So it's a fun podcast because it's just like this. It's just real people talking about real things and giving all of us just hope and inspiration that we can do it. Whatever it is in this human experience that we've contracted to do and learn, you can get through it. And we're here to help each other. That's what this life is about. We don't do anything alone in this life.
And there you go. And with that said, everyone, I hope you all have the most wonderful day. Maureen, thank you for being with us. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. You're amazing.
Oh, I don't know. You're all obviously after something, peppering me up, ready for your podcast. I think you're just trying to sweeten me up, and then I'm going to get the real shabam on the day, and I'm going to get the shock of my life. But anyway, we shall see for sure. In the meantime, everybody else, I hope you have the most wonderful day, and sayonara.